Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. And look, it's showing. Oh no, it's showing the current comments. Okay, for a second there, I thought it was showing the old comments. Well, how are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. This will be a short show. Excuse me. Need a sip of sangria. And yes, Richard, I did. The flight back was uneventful, and we actually got here 20 minutes early, which was bizarre. But anyway, yes, I am exhausted after this weekend. This was quite the very trying weekend. Oh, my hair is a mess. So this is going to be a short show, but I wanted to hop right back into it, do a little bit of history, and, have that be done because there's meetings. There's a bylaws meeting on Thursday. There's an LNC meeting on Sunday. So when I have the time, I need to do these, though I did just get out of a ballot access committee meeting. But we're just going to finish covering the states from last time. But if you guys haven't watched a 5-part series on my Southwest adventure, I would highly suggest that you do, because there's things I didn't even mention in there as well that have nothing to do with Southwest, but have to do with why this was like so incredibly difficult. Like, my flying phobia to begin with. I could tell you, I told them in Oregon, you guys have to know how much I love you. If I was willing to do a 3-hop thing to get there, that was change planes every single time, which would have been 3 takeoffs and 3 landings, which I was freaking out about. because I am not comfortable with flying at all. I know people think I am because I do it so often. No, I'm not. And it just like sent me into an autistic tailspin for a little while. But anyway, I am back here, and Southwest did make it good finally, even though they kept telling me they weren't going to do a damn thing for me. You know what? There is an advantage to having a slight voice on Twitter. I don't have that many Twitter followers, but I have more than the chat's updating on my side, Nathan. I see your comment right up there. But I have more followers than, your average everyday person. So Southwest reached out to me personally after my Twitter rant. So I did end up with $450 worth of vouchers, which, okay, we're cool now, Southwest. We're cool now. But that was a frickin' nightmare. So there'll be an LNC meeting, not the DC one. I already bought my tickets for that, but whatever the meeting is after that, I'll be using my Southwest vouchers because I already got my PorkFest tickets as well. But anyway, we're going to do a short history show, but I am freaking exhausted. It's probably going to take me a week to recover from that. Like, that was just incredibly stressful. So here we go. We're going to continue on with some of the state party updates here. North Carolina. This state is keeping up with the nationwide drive to affiliate LPs in every state, and it will be holding its organizational meeting June 21st, and Bert Wiener is the state chairman. Okay, got it. North Dakota. Man, they were affiliating a lot of states in these 74, 75, so it took a few years. North Dakota. Affiliation is pending for the LP in North Dakota with Dave Saunders as the chairman of the new party. Libertarians in Fargo, Grand Forks, Minot, and Bismarck had the opportunity to speak with Robert Meyer, national director of the LP, last month while he visited the area in an effort to aid organizing the state group. Ohio. The LP here reports the election of new officers for the coming year. They are Kay Haroff, last year's candidate for U.S. Senate chairman, John Rako and John DeJager, vice chairman, James Higgins, treasurer, and Linda Bunyan, secretary. But before we continue, I want to remind you guys it's the last 2 days to get in your convention theme. So get in that theme. You have till tomorrow evening. And then in June, we will be voting with our dollars for them. But I am really curious as to what all these themes will be. The convention committee did not get to see them ahead of time. I don't know, maybe the chair did, but I haven't seen them ahead of time. So I don't think the voting on the theme's going to happen immediately in June, because the Convention Oversight Committee does have to go through the themes and weed out the ones that are obscene, anti-libertarian, obviously taking a shot at somebody, something like that. So the voting with your dollars probably doesn't happen until the second week in June, unless we're going to have a special meeting for this or do it over email. I don't know. I need to talk to Rich Bowen about that. Didn't even think about that. All righty. Oh, I know what else I wanted to tell you. So I was at the Oregon convention. I saw that, Nathan. You Dennising people. I thought you were Dennis. JJ has no idea what we're talking about, but I thought you were Dennis. I definitely thought you were Dennis. So I want to tell you, so Oregon is still interesting. Or, I've always said when you look at bylaws, you see the artifacts of controversies past. That's basically what you see. When you see a weird bylaw, you're like, Why? Why is this here? And that whole Oregon split happened in 2011, and their bylaws still bear the battle scars from it. And I think the only way they're going to be able to get some, I think they're problems. They're not problems in the same way as some people's. It's not contradictions or anything like that. It's just extraordinarily expensive and cumbersome, and they still do have problems meeting quorum. And I think the only way they're going to fix these bylaws is by authorizing a revision. I really do, because here's the thing. First, they have trouble getting quorum. So they needed 52 people for quorum, and they had 53. And that includes online, because they do hybrid. That is rough. They weren't sure they were going to be able to get quorum. You know, that's just nerve-wracking. Like, they had 49 people there, and they're on the phone calling people. You know, that's rough. But the way they do their bylaws as well is bylaws are not adopted at convention. They're recommended at convention. So they have to, quote unquote, pass at convention, and then they get sent out to a mail ballot to every libertarian in Oregon. To over 20,000 people. Do you want to know how much that costs? Now, like, there's something where they're like doing it electronically a little bit now, but they still have to send notice. So it's just crazy expensive, crazy cumbersome. And just because somebody registered libertarian doesn't mean they're a libertarian. So they're getting this thing in the mail, and they don't know what it is. They don't know anything about the state party, and this is who's voting on your bylaws. It's crazy to me. But this is an artifact of what happened in 2011, where they did this mail-out ballot, and it kind of got stuck in the bylaws. And even though most of these people who get these ballots in the mail probably don't think about the party for any other time throughout the years when they don't get it, they're not going to vote to take that away, even though they don't really care, because that's just how people are. So it's really rough. It is really, really rough to get things passed. And they don't have a parliamentary authority, which makes things even rougher. So what's funny about the whole thing is if everyone remembers, or not everyone, but if some of you remember the names of the people who were involved in the original controversy, out of all of them, only one is still actively participating, and it is the person who lost that whole battle is still the only one who's participating. The winners, so like Wes Wagner's not there anymore, Kyle Markey's not there anymore, Richard Burke is still participating. And I got to meet him. Super nice guy. He had a great booth. He's doing this, I think it's called Western Liberty. Crap, I can't remember the last word of it, but it's very successful. And I got to learn a bit about star voting. They are huge star voting advocates in Oregon. I was open-minded about it. I still don't believe it's better than RCV. They believe it's better than RCV. I can see some ways that I think RCV is better, and some ways I think star is better. However, for simplicity and ease of voter understanding and the removal of this weird subjective rating system that isn't just like 1, 2, 3, I still think RCV is better. Just my personal opinion, but I know a lot more about star than I did before, so I super appreciated it. And I learned what star stands for, which I didn't know before, which is, hold on now, what is it again? I know AR is automatic runoff. T is then. S is, what does the S stand for again? Oh, crap. Let me look it up. Because it's like a ranking. Score. Score, then automatic runoff. That's what STAR stands for. And my problem is in the scoring part, because there are some people out there who will not ever give anyone a 5. They'll think like that's perfect, and no candidate is perfect. Meanwhile, other people will be given 5s all over the place, and it gives those candidates an advantage. However, unless, I think there's a little bit of a semantic sleight of hand here. However, you don't have exhausted ballots with STAR, so that is an advantage. I think the scoring is way too subjective, but I like the idea that you don't have an exhausted ballot. But that's a slight sleight of hand, because if you scored the top 2 the same, then your vote is counted as no preference, which is the same exact thing as exhausted, just by another name. It's like having approval voting, where you hit approval on everybody. You might as well not have voted. So I think that's a bit of a sleight of hand, but it was really, really interesting. But I'm still an RCV gal. Didn't convince me, might convince me in the future. My mind's always open. Okay, so now we're going to continue. Oklahoma. June 14th was the date of the LP organizational meeting at the Oklahoma State University at Stillwater. A tax protest staged in Oklahoma City resulted in a good article from a newspaper there. John Vernon, a prolific writer of letters to local newspapers, was able to publicize libertarian principles during his unsuccessful election campaign for Oklahoma City Municipal City Council seat. And by the way, Nathan, I got in my postcards today from Vistaprint, where we're going to be mailing them out, pardon me, to Castle Pines to try to find some city council candidates. Oregon, speaking of Oregon, June 14th was also the date of the Oregon LP convention held in Eugene to elect officers and delegates. A Eugene newspaper also ran a long descriptive interview with National LP Chairman Ed Crane explaining the LP position. Oh, something else I want to tell you about Oregon. Now, this is exciting. At least to me, it's exciting. There's been movements. There's one in Colorado for states to break apart in some way, like between Northern and Southern California. That's been going on forever. Every once in a while, you hear about the state of Jefferson wanting to break off, that was originally part of Tennessee and all of that. Weld County, I know the name just triggers me, but it's actually a very libertarian county in Colorado, wants to leave Colorado and join Wyoming. So these sorts of movements have been happening. But it seems to me, maybe I just bought the propaganda, but it seems to me the one that's more likely to happen than any is the one that's going on in Oregon right now, which I never even heard about, which would be basically splitting the state of Oregon in half between Eastern and Western, with Eastern Oregon joining Idaho, and it's called the Greater Idaho Coalition. And it's very, very interesting. And it would make Oregon really small, kind of like an eastern state. But the population would remain pretty close to the same, because Western Oregon's where Portland is. It's where all the population is. But they are so different, the two sides of the state. It makes sense to me. However, what was interesting, there's a Republican who was there speaking on behalf of this Greater Idaho thing, is a Libertarian got up, and I noticed the dodging the question. I noticed the not so artful dodge. And the Libertarian said, but wait, yeah, this sounds great. All for, seceding, rejoining, whatever you want to do. But weed is legal in Oregon. If and it's not in Idaho. So if you split Oregon down the middle, you've just made overnight the people in Eastern Oregon who happen to partake of the devil's lettuce, instant criminals. Now, what was interesting that the Republican did is he didn't focus on the crime part. He focused on the overnight part. And that's when you know you're dealing with a politician. First, he stated some facts, and this is true. The only reason weed passed in Oregon is because of Western Oregon. It was the Portland vote. Eastern Oregon, as a general rule, the voters there did not want legalized weed, just like Idaho doesn't. Okay, take that out of the equation. The fact is there are people living in Eastern Oregon right now that enjoy that particular freedom. So then he went on to say, well, it wouldn't happen overnight. You'd be grandfathered out. Notice, and then he said, or grandfathered in. But it was pretty clear. Yep, if this happens, say goodbye to your weed. But it was so funny in how he focused on the overnight. Well, it wouldn't really happen overnight. Rather than, dude, this will mean less freedom in a lot of ways. You know, maybe y'all Republicans are okay with that, but you're at a Libertarian convention. So that was interesting. But my prediction, I want to talk about that a slight bit more. So I think there's a good chance it could happen. Maybe I just drank the Kool-Aid. But I can't wait for this to happen somewhere. And not just these one county things, like if it happened in Colorado with Wyoming, even though I think that still would be significant. But if you split a whole state in half, so like if the northern Southern California thing happened, the splitting Oregon in half happened, I think you'd start to see a domino effect of this happening everywhere, and like a realignment of the states. And a split in Oregon may then have the domino effect of a split in Washington, with some of Washington not wanting to be involved with other areas of Washington and joining with which was Eastern Oregon. So I think it would be fascinating. I want something like this to happen somewhere. You know, I'm a huge national divorce proponent. You all know that. However, realistically speaking, the fact is that it happened a long time ago in Maine and West Virginia. I'm talking about recent history, because I know West Virginia used to be part of Virginia. But I mean like now, with everything that's going on and with the conversation that's going on around national divorce. Because the fact is, no matter how big of a proponent I am of national divorce, the people who are yelling and screaming, oh, that will just result in a civil war, are probably right. Because the federal government's like an abusive spouse. They ain't going to let you go. So what's the next best thing? More realignment, so that there isn't quite so much like feeling like you're getting, the more rural areas feeling like they're just getting completely ruled over by small geographic areas with large populations. So it would be interesting. It would be definitely sloppy seconds as far as I'm concerned, rather than, secession down to the individual. But I think it would be an improvement, and it would show the power of the people. So anyway, I really enjoyed that portion of the talk there at the convention. So now moving on, Pennsylvania. The Libertas 75 convention of the state LP will be held in York on June 21st to prepare for upcoming ballot drives, as well as the National Convention Labor Day weekend. Except for Pennsylvania, it's like this tiny little thing. South Carolina, the Old South is falling into line, as South Carolina is on the verge of affiliating with the National Party. Charles T. Blackwell of York is the chairman. South Carolina, by the way, if you remember Stuart Flood of South Carolina, he left the LP a while ago. It had nothing to do with Mises or any of that. I remember for the longest time, South Carolina was regionless because Stuart Flood absolutely refused to join a region. Well, apparently he's starting a new national party. It's some kind of classical liberal party or whatever of that. It has nothing to do with Mises or whatever. He's not happy with Mises, don't get me wrong, but his dissatisfaction happened a while ago because he's a lot less radical. But anyway, just thought you'd find that interesting. Tennessee, Libertarians, and let me tell you what I respect about what Stuart Flood's doing. He's doing like Steve Sheets is doing. He's not trying to poach or illegitimately try to pull a Michigan, on current LP state parties. He's like, I'm starting my own thing. You want to come do this thing with me? Come do this thing with me. But we're leaving the state LP party alone. And I respect that. We need more third parties as far as I'm concerned. And if those, well, never mind. But just saying, he's not pulling a Michigan. He's not pulling a Delaware. Tennessee. Libertarians here have concentrated most of their effort in lobbying the state legislature. Their successes have not been many, but they have been promising, as several legislators have been in communication with Tennessee Libertarians. In the Memphis area, Libertarians are gearing up for the state convention and monitoring events on the national scene. Texas. The Texas LP newsletter reports that they are gaining new members and increasing their range of activity throughout the state. 2 libertarians appeared on a Dallas, keep getting like frog in my throat, ribbit. It's from talking too much this weekend. Texas libertarians are distinguishing themselves. Wait. Never mind, we were doing Tennessee. Oh, in the Memphis area, libertarians are gearing up for the state convention and monitoring events on the national scene. Okay, there we go. Texas. The Texas LP newsletter reports that they are gaining new members and increasing their range of activity throughout the state. 2 libertarians appeared on a Dallas-Fort Worth area radio show, generating considerable interest. Texas libertarians are distinguishing themselves by addressing concrete issues, I am losing my voice, that are relevant in their area. One of these is the question of, and it has it in quotes, illegal aliens. A letter to the editor of a Houston paper defended the right of such immigrants to enter this country and hold jobs. Another LPer has suggested the inclusion of a freedom of religion plank in the national LP platform and correctly warns us to guard against projecting the image that religious persons do not belong in the Libertarian Party. That has been an ongoing problem. An ongoing problem. Nathan, I think you're confusing the Tea Party. Tom Knapp did not start the Tea Party. He started something called the Boston Tea Party with Darryl Perry. It wasn't taken over. The Tea Party movement in the Republican Party has absolutely nothing to do with what Tom Knapp and Darryl Perry were doing. The Boston Tea Party, which they started, was somewhat of an experiment. They wanted to see if they could do all online national conventions. They also did it as a protest against certain happenings in the LP, but they always had every intention of dissolving it and rejoining the LP, which they did. So the Boston Tea Party got dissolved. It didn't get overtaken. The Tea Party movement in the Republican Party is something completely different. Just an FYI. I've spoken to both Darryl and Tom Knapp long lengths over the Boston Tea Party thing. Okay. Utah. Freedom Express is the Utah LP newsletter, and it regularly features articles dealing with current issues as well as state party items. Recent articles have dealt with monetary theory, federal energy policy, the mood of the nation, ooh la la, and suggestions about ways to communicate libertarianism. Now, the last state, finally, we're at the last state, Washington. The state LP was the subject of a long article. You know, when I see that, I'm circling it. It means I got to look it up. In the Washington State Daily Evergreen. Oh, it's a campus newsletter. It's probably not on newspapers.com. For the Pullman area. The article outlined the basic goals and philosophy of the LP aiming at the student audience. So that is it for the local affiliates. But one thing I wanted to show you guys, and I'm probably going to put this on the screen, and that will be it for this evening. And we are at just about a half an hour. Okay. Is this the right? No. Hold on, let's go back. Yes, it's that ad I wanted to show you guys. So it's the Liberty 76 Fund where it says 1976. It's too late to begin raising money for the 1976 presidential campaign. Campaign finance was different then. And we're going to read, if you see on the next page, where this started to change. If you see here, nope, it's not this page. It's in the next one. It's in here somewhere. Campaign regulations. So what page is that continued from? But whatever. That is when campaign finance started to change. But let's go back to that ad. So it's the Liberty 76 Fund. It says it's going to take about $500,000 to $1 million to conduct an effective campaign in 76. And our chances of raising that kind of money are directly proportional to the amount we start out with in September of 75. Right now, the way things are, the national LP does not fund presidential campaigns in the way that they did then. A realistic estimate is that we'll need a minimum of $50,000 by Labor Day if we're going to raise the rest in the following 14 months. That's why the National Libertarian Party has established the Liberty 76 Fund to serve as an accumulation point for that $50,000. All money contributed to the Liberty 76 Fund above the expenses incurred in raising that money will be put into a special account and turned over to our national candidates campaign fund in September. Because remember, they nominated candidates the year before back then. It will not be spent on anything else. And then it goes on to say how you can contribute. Oh, it is the next page. So it's page 6. Yep. Is page 6 missing from here? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So it goes 8. But how many pages are in this? 7. Is this? Where is this campaign controls? Ah, it's right here. Campaign controls contested. So that's where it started talking about it. So that's probably where we're going to, if we didn't cover that. Let me look. Did we cover that already? No, I don't. I can't remember if we did. I don't think we did. Well, I guess we'll see when we start reading it, but that's probably where we are going to start next time, and it probably will be tomorrow because I don't think I have any committee meetings tomorrow. But you never know what's going to come up. So I hope you all have an awesome night. I'm tired, but I still have some work to do. But after that, it's bedtime. It's bedtime for Mama. All right. Bye-bye. Mi guapas de libertad.
gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because they want to